Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
It was November in the year 2025. A difficult and tense situation began in East Asia. Japan had a new leader, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. She had become Prime Minister only a short time before. People were watching her closely. One day, Prime Minister Takaichi spoke about Taiwan in Japan's parliament. Taiwan is a democratic island, home to 23 million people, and it is very close to Japanese land. What she said was very important. She stated that if China used its military to attack Taiwan, it would create a big, dangerous problem for Japan. She used strong words, saying it would be a survival-threatening situation for her country. This meant Japan's safety and future could be at risk. Her message was different and much stronger than what past Japanese leaders had said. They usually spoke carefully, hoping for peace without making direct threats. Prime Minister Takaichi's clear words changed this. When China's government heard what she said, they became very angry. They quickly sent formal complaints to Japan. They said Japan was wrong to talk about Taiwan in this way. China believes Taiwan is part of its own country. A Chinese diplomat in a city called Osaka even wrote a very angry message online, suggesting a harsh response to Japan. This message was later deleted, but it showed how upset China was. This kind of aggressive talk, sometimes called wolf warrior diplomacy, made the situation much worse. This event started a very big and serious argument between Japan and China. It was the most important disagreement between the two countries in many years. They have a long history, and sometimes their views clash strongly. This new problem made their relationship much more difficult and uncertain. The whole world paid attention to what was happening. Many countries watched closely to see how this argument would develop in East Asia. Taiwan is important for global trade and technology, especially computer chips. So problems there can affect everyone. People wondered what would come next. Would the argument get worse and lead to more serious actions? Or could peace be kept? The stability in this part of the world felt very fragile. Everyone knew that this tense situation could change things for many countries around the globe. Prime Minister Takaichi's important words had started a new and dangerous chapter for the region and its future. 2. The Prime Minister's words. In November 2025, Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, made an important statement in Parliament. She was asked about possible dangers to Japan. She clearly said that a military attack by China on Taiwan could constitute a survival-threatening situation for Japan. She also stressed that Japan must prepare for the worst possible outcome in such a crisis. These words marked a big change in Japan's approach. Before, leaders had chosen their words carefully, never speaking directly about military help for Taiwan. They usually just hoped for peace through talks. But Prime Minister Takaichi's message was direct and strong, unlike anything heard from past leaders. This was a notable shift from Japan's usual way of speaking about such sensitive issues. Her statement relied on Japan's security laws updated in 2015. These laws brought in the idea of a survival-threatening situation. This means Japan's self-defense forces can act not only when Japan itself is attacked. They can also act if a country closely linked to Japan is attacked, and this attack threatens Japan's own safety. By linking Taiwan to Japan's survival, Takaichi showed a possible legal reason for Japan to use its military if Taiwan were in danger. This was a big change from Japan's past policy of only defending itself. Prime Minister Takaichi had only taken office in October 2025, becoming Japan's first woman prime minister. She is known for her strong nationalistic beliefs. She was a close political ally of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Her ideas are part of Japan's nationalist right wing, which often calls for a stronger Japan. She has promised to increase defense spending and work more closely with the United States. Just a few days before her speech, Prime Minister Takaichi met with Lin Shin-yi, a high-ranking Taiwanese official. This meeting happened at the APEC summit in South Korea. This meeting itself was important. China had already complained about it, saying it broke the One China principle, which states Taiwan is part of China. The meeting showed Takaichi's intent to engage directly with Taiwan, setting the stage for her strong words in Parliament. 3. China's angry answer. After Japan's Prime Minister spoke, China's government quickly showed its anger. The very same day, China's Foreign Ministry officially complained to Japan. On November 9th, a spokesman named Lin Zhen said that Prime Minister Takaichi's words were very wrong. He said they broke China's One China principle, which is the idea that Taiwan is part of China. He also said Japan had broken important agreements made between the two countries in the past. China made serious démarches and protests to the Japanese government about this. But the anger did not stop with official complaints. The most dramatic response came from a Chinese diplomat in Japan. On November 10th, Shui Zhen, China's consul general in Osaka, wrote a shocking message on X, which used to be called Twitter. The message, written in Japanese, said something like, "The dirty neck that tries to get involved must be cut off." It even asked, "Are you ready?" This was a clear and strong threat aimed at Japan and its prime minister. Many people saw the post before it was quickly deleted. This kind of very strong and sometimes threatening talk is known as wolf warrior diplomacy. This aggressive style became more common under China's leader Xi Jinping. It uses harsh language, brings up old disagreements, and makes clear threats. The goal is to scare foreign leaders and show strength to people inside China. The name Wolf Warrior comes from popular Chinese action movies showing a tough and ready approach. Other countries quickly spoke against the diplomat's words. Japan's chief cabinet secretary, Minoru Kihara, said the remarks were extremely inappropriate. Japan again made formal protests to China. Some Japanese politicians even called for Consul General Shui Jin to be asked to leave Japan, meaning to be declared persona non grata. Taiwan's foreign ministry also called the remarks disrespectful and impolite, criticizing them for showing a reckless and domineering mindset. Despite the strong international criticism, China's government did not apologize or distance itself from the diplomats' words. Instead, Beijing's foreign ministry defended Shui Jin. Spokesperson Lin Jian stated that Shui's comments were a response to the wrongful and dangerous remarks made by Prime Minister Takaichi. Lin Jian also said that some Japanese politicians and media were making the post seem worse on purpose to create confusion and divert attention from Japan's actions. This defense showed that Beijing was united in its stance and supported the aggressive message, even if the post itself was removed. It signaled that China was very serious about rejecting what it saw as Japanese interference in Taiwan. 4. An old disagreement. The disagreement between China and Japan about Taiwan was not new. It had deep roots in their shared history. China remembered Japan's past actions, including its colonial rule of Taiwan. This historical memory still caused strong feelings in China. When Japan's leaders spoke about Taiwan, China often feared that Japan was returning to a path of military expansion. Chinese officials would often ask, "Is Japan going to repeat its past mistakes of militarism?" This showed China's worry about Japanese power in the region. Over the years, China and Japan signed important agreements. These were known as the Four Political Documents. They included a joint communique from 1972, a treaty of peace and friendship in 1978, a joint declaration in 1998, and a joint statement in 2008. These documents were meant to build good relations between the two nations and set clear rules for their interactions. However, China and Japan understood these agreements in different ways, especially about Taiwan. China believed these documents bound Japan to not interfere in what China saw as its internal affairs. For China, Taiwan was an unchangeable part of its territory, and no other country should meddle. But Japan held a different view. The 1972 joint communique stated that Japan fully understands and respects China's position on Taiwan. This specific language was key. Japan did not say it fully agreed with China's claim, but rather that it understood and respected it. Japan interpreted these documents as guiding bilateral relations, not as stopping its right to act if its own survival was threatened by military actions in the region. Japan's ideas about its own defense were also changing. For a long time, Japan had a defense policy focused only on defending its own land. Now, Japan's leaders saw that events around Taiwan could directly affect Japan's safety and economy. A large part of Japan's oil imports and other important trade goods passed through the waters near Taiwan. If these sea routes were blocked, Japan's economy could suffer greatly. This new understanding made Japan believe it needed to be ready to respond to threats to its own survival. Prime Minister Takaichi's recent statement reflected this shift, showing Japan's growing concern for its security in the Taiwan Strait. This meant Japan was rethinking how its security interests matched its old diplomatic promises. 5. An important island. Taiwan is a small island, but it is very important for Japan and the whole world. For Japan, its economy depends a lot on the sea routes near Taiwan. If these sea routes were blocked, Japan's economy could suffer greatly. This new understanding made Japan believe it needed to be ready to respond to threats to its own survival. Prime Minister Takaichi's recent statement reflected this shift, showing Japan's growing concern for its security in the Taiwan Strait. This meant Japan was rethinking how its security interests matched its old diplomatic promises. Many ships carry oil and other important goods to Japan. These ships often come from the Middle East and other distant places. They must pass through the waters around Taiwan to reach Japan. Most of Japan's crude oil, about 90 to 95%, travels through these sea lanes. If there is a conflict or trouble near Taiwan, these vital shipping routes could be blocked. This would mean Japan might not get enough oil. Without oil, Japan's power plants and factories would struggle to operate. Cars and trains would stop running. Such a situation would severely harm Japan's economy, possibly bringing it to a standstill. These waters are also crucial for global trade. Each year, imports and exports worth approximately $5.5 trillion flow through the Taiwan Strait, the East China Sea, and the South China Sea. Many of these goods are for Japan or go through Japan to other countries. If China were to control or block these routes, it could affect Japan's ability to trade freely. This direct link between Taiwan's security and Japan's economic health makes Taiwan a survival-threatening situation for Japan. Japan sees its concern for Taiwan as a necessary step to protect its own future and resources. Beyond trade and oil, Taiwan plays a unique and critical role in the world's technology industry. It is the leading producer of the most advanced computer chips. Companies like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, known as TSMC, create the tiny brains that power nearly all modern electronic devices. These chips are essential for everything from everyday smartphones and personal computers to advanced military equipment and artificial intelligence systems. If a crisis happens in Taiwan, the global supply of these crucial computer chips would be severely affected. Factories around the world that rely on these chips would have to slow down or stop production. This would create a major technology crisis, impacting many nations. Countries like the United States, South Korea, and those in Europe would all face significant problems in their tech sectors and broader economies. The world relies heavily on Taiwan's chip-making ability. Therefore, Japan's concern for Taiwan is not only about its immediate economic needs. It is also about the stability of global technology and the wider world economy. A problem in Taiwan would cause widespread issues, showing how connected the world is. For Japan, keeping peace and stability around Taiwan is key to its own prosperity and the smooth functioning of global industries. 6. America's new plan. The United States played an important role in the unfolding situation. In January 2025, Donald Trump became president again. His new administration brought a different way of dealing with Taiwan. For a long time, America had a policy called strategic ambiguity. This policy meant the U.S. kept its plans unclear. It did not directly say if it would send its military to defend Taiwan in case of a Chinese attack. This unclear stance was designed to prevent China from attacking Taiwan and also to stop Taiwan from declaring full independence, which could anger China. However, the new Trump administration made this strategic ambiguity even more ambiguous. President Trump made brief statements, such as simply saying, "Taiwan is Taiwan," to journalists. This was a change from past administrations, like President Joe Biden's, where statements about defending Taiwan were sometimes made, only to be later softened by White House officials. President Trump's team seemed to prefer keeping all choices open, not making any firm commitments that might limit future actions. This approach created more uncertainty for everyone. Because America's position was less clear, Japan felt it needed to take action. Japan's leaders saw that the United States was not giving a strong or precise signal about its commitment to Taiwan's defense. Therefore, Japan felt it had to speak up on its own. It needed to clearly state its own limits and what it would consider a threat to its survival if Taiwan was attacked. Prime Minister Takaichi's strong statements were a direct outcome of this need for clarity from Japan. Tokyo believed it had to show China its seriousness, especially when Washington's voice was quiet. This new dynamic, however, introduced risks for the important alliance between the U.S. and Japan. If Japan was explicit about its defense of Taiwan, but the United States remained vague, Japan might find itself in a difficult position. It could potentially face a conflict with China without a clear promise of American military help. This difference in how Japan and the U.S. were handling the situation could weaken their partnership. It raised questions for Japan about how much support it could truly expect from America in a real crisis. The American government's unclear plan pushed Japan to take a bolder step, but this also put strain on the relationship between the two countries. 7. Soldiers and ships. Before the public argument between Japan and China, military actions were already taking place. China was actively showing its growing military strength near the island of Taiwan. These military actions were not just training exercises. They were like a very clear message to the world about China's power and its intentions. In April 2025, China carried out a very large military exercise. It was named Straight Thunder 2025A, and it lasted for 33 hours. During this drill, Chinese forces practiced many difficult tasks. For the first time, they did not just fire missiles. They also practiced blocking ships and inspecting them closely. This was a new and important part of their training. In the past, drills mostly showed how China could surround the island. But Straight Thunder 2025A showed China could actually stop ships from moving in and out of Taiwan's waters. About 90 naval and Coast Guard vessels took part, which was a much higher number than in earlier exercises. Some military experts believed that these intensive drills showed China's actual plan for a conflict over Taiwan. They thought the plan had three main stages. First, patrols to prepare for a fight. Second, attacks on targets at sea and on land. And third, stopping and pushing away any other ships. China was clearly demonstrating its ability to close off Taiwan completely if it decided to. China used what some people call the cabbage strategy. This strategy involves putting many layers of military presence, like ships and planes, around Taiwan. Each layer is like a leaf on a cabbage. The goal is to make Taiwan feel completely surrounded and unable to move or receive supplies. This was not just for practice. It was a strong way to communicate China's military control and its overall goals for Taiwan's future. These actions were a way to show power without starting a full war. Japan's Prime Minister Takaichi saw these increasing military displays. Her strong words about Taiwan were a direct answer to these growing threats. She wanted to signal that Japan would not simply watch silently if China used military force against Taiwan. She aimed to make China think very carefully before taking any military action. Her public statement was an effort to make China understand that Japan would not ignore such serious events happening close to its own territory. It was intended as a clear warning, hoping to prevent further military escalation and to encourage a peaceful resolution. 8. An unsure future. The November 2025 crisis showed how serious the situation in East Asia has become. Old diplomatic rules are breaking down. The ways countries used to talk are not strong enough for today's problems. Both Japan and China have strong nationalism. This makes it hard for their leaders to be flexible or find common ground. Both countries also feel a deep fear of each other. Beijing fears Japan becoming a powerful military force again, remembering past wars. Tokyo fears China's growing military power and its plans for Taiwan. Japan sees Taiwan as vital. Many important sea routes for oil and trade pass near the island. A conflict there could cripple Japan's economy. This shared fear creates a dangerous cycle, making each country's actions worry the other more. Prime Minister Takaichi's strong words about Taiwan were a big change for Japan. Before, Japan was more careful. Now, people ask if her clear statement created more safety or more danger. Some believe she aimed to deter China by showing Japan's red lines, hoping Beijing would think twice. Others argue her words made China angrier, increasing conflict risk and pushing the region closer to a real fight. East Asia's peace is very fragile. Old agreements and understandings are under great pressure. The United States' less clear stance on Taiwan under its new administration also pushed Japan to speak out. This added to the uncertainty. So, the future is truly unsure. The crisis showed deep disagreements between China and Japan over Taiwan, security, and Asia's future. What will happen next? Will new ways of talking be found? Or will strong feelings and military power lead to more problems? The world watches to see if clarity brings peace or confrontation. What do you think is the biggest challenge for peace in East Asia right now?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.